Welcome to the Hope for Today podcast. Today is day 11.
It's great to be diving into this. Today, we really arrive at a pivot point in the life of Jacob.
A huge one.
This is the moment he has to face the biggest burden of his past, which is that unresolved conflict with his brother Esau. He's finally going home, but he knows what he fled from 20 years ago is, well, it's still waiting for him.
And that challenge isn't just some, abstract idea. It's terrifyingly real. He sends these messengers ahead trying to, get the lay of the land. And they come back with news that just paralyzes him. Esau is on his way, and he's bringing 400 men.
400 men, I mean, that's not a welcoming party.
No, that's a small army. That's a deployment.
Exactly. And, when we have to face old conflicts, the natural human response is just fear. It's distress. And Jacob felt that. You can tell he felt it deeply.
Of course.
But what makes this story so powerful for us is how he channels that fear. He immediately moves into this model of response that is perfectly balanced. It's both practical and spiritual.
Right. He doesn't just freeze up. He takes this very decisive, practical action first. He divides his entire company, his family, the flocks, the herds, into two separate groups.
Which is a brutal kind of logic, isn't it?
It is. But it's necessary. He's thinking if one camp is attacked, maybe, just maybe, the other can escape. He's planning for the absolute worst-case scenario.
And that diligence in preparation, that's vital. But it's just not enough on its own without the spiritual part. So immediately after making that division, Jacob turns to desperate prayer.
And his prayer is something else. It's like a masterclass.
It really is. It's a masterclass in humility and just a real understanding of God. He starts by affirming God's faithfulness. He basically says, "You told me to return, and you promised to prosper me."
I find the next part so revealing. It shows how much he's grown. He says, point blank, "I am unworthy."
I am unworthy of all the kindness and faithfulness you have shown your servant.
It's incredible. He's saying, I crossed this river with nothing but a staff, and now look at me, I've become two camps.
He's stripped away any reliance on his own merit or his old cunning. He's acknowledging that every single thing he has is pure grace. So his request for safety, it isn't based on him being good. It's based solely on God's prior declared promise.
And that's the core truth for us, isn't it? Faith doesn't just erase fear.
Not at all. It immediately reroutes our dependence. It takes it away from our own efforts and puts it squarely on God's promises.
Yep.
We have to combine our best, most diligent preparation with desperate prayer.
So he's done what he can to protect his family. He's prayed. And then he escalates the practical side of things again with this unbelievable gift.
It is astonishing. This isn't just a small token.
No, we're talking about hundreds of animals. Goats, sheep, camels, cows, donkeys, sent ahead in waves.
It's an overwhelming, very calculated strategy, and it's designed to do just one thing: pacify Esau. To, soothe his brother's anger. He tells the servants to leave space between the herds so the gifts just keep coming, one wave after another, before he even shows up.
That's real humility in action then, trying to make peace through lavish giving before you even get there.
It is. But it's a great question to ask, isn't this still the old Jacob, the schemer?
Right. Dividing goods, sending what are essentially bribes, moving people around like chess pieces. It feels like his old playbook.
It does, and that tension is real. He is still operating out of that fear, out of his natural instincts. But the key difference is he prayed first. He used his human effort to create space and time, but he's ultimately relying on God to change the outcome. He's doing everything he can, knowing full well that all of it might fail if God doesn't intervene.
Okay, so let's track this. The gifts are sent. The family crosses the river. And then after all that elaborate preparation, the deepest, most defining work happens when Jacob is left completely alone.
At the ford of the Jabbok. And that isolation, that's a spiritual requirement. He had to be detached from his wealth, his family, even his own strategies. He was stripped bare.
It feels like that's often where the most profound spiritual work has to happen, in those moments of solitude.
I think so. Away from all the comforts we lean on. And in that isolation, he meets a man who we understand to be God, and they wrestle all night until daybreak.
A physical struggle. And what just gets me is his sheer refusal to give up.
That persistence is the whole takeaway. He struggles honestly, and he will not quit. When the man says he has to leave at dawn, Jacob just clings to him and says, "I will not let you go unless you bless me."
It's so bold.
It tells us that real transformation isn't passive. It takes intense, persistent engagement. Sometimes you have to be willing to struggle for the blessing God has promised.
But that struggle has a cost, a very visible one. The man touches the socket of Jacob's hip, and it's wrenched out of place. This isn't just some minor injury. It's a permanent physical change.
It's the ultimate act of humbling him. The physical wound shows that God sometimes has to limit our natural strength, our self-reliance. Jacob, the strong man who wrestled all night, now has to lean on a staff.
So the limp becomes this constant visible reminder that his own strength, his scheming, all of it has been neutralized.
He is spiritually empowered by being physically limited. And right out of that wrenching struggle comes this radical shift in his identity. The man changes his name from Jacob's supplanter, deceiver, to Israel.
Israel. He has struggled with God and with humans and has overcome.
And that is so critical for us. I mean, think about it. Our spiritual identity gets redefined, not by our past failures, not by our old nature, but by the persistent, honest struggle we have with God and for God. He's no longer defined by his cunning. He's defined by his conviction.
He's a transformed man, permanently marked. He names the place Peniel, saying, "I saw God face to face, and yet my life was spared." So he survives this ultimate test, and he's limping forward, but he's full of this mix of humility and assurance.
Right. And now that spiritual preparation is about to collide with the human confrontation he was so afraid of, the wrestling was necessary, you see, to unlock the possibility of reconciliation.
And he approaches Esau with that new humility, bowing down 7 times. He's expecting a fight.
He's prepared for the worst. But Esau's reaction just shatters all of Jacob's fearful planning.
It's one of the most moving moments. Esau runs to him, embraces him, throws his arms around his neck and kisses him, and they weep together.
It's just a moment of pure, unexpected grace. It completely eclipses all of Jacob's careful preparations. God's intervention so often leads to a reconciliation that is just. It's beyond what we could ever expect.
That army of 400 men became irrelevant.
Totally irrelevant because of the open, grieving heart of his brother. All that bitterness from 2 decades just evaporated in that one embrace.
And there's that interesting back and forth about the gifts. Esau says no at first, right? I have plenty, my brother.
He does. But Jacob insists. And the acceptance of the gift was so important because it validated the reconciliation for him. He actually says that seeing Esau's favorable face was like seeing the face of God.
Wow.
Think about the power of that. The blessing he wrestled for at Peniel, seeing the face of God, is made real and tangible in the peace he finds with his brother. The spiritual struggle confirmed the human peace.
Then, after they reconcile, Esau offers to travel with him, but Jacob says no, showing this incredible thoughtfulness.
He does. He teaches us something about good leadership, about caring for the vulnerable. He says his children are tender, the livestock are nursing. If they're driven too hard, even for one day, they'll die.
He refuses to sacrifice the weakest members of his family for convenience.
He chooses a measured, careful pace. And that pace eventually leads him to Shechem, where he settles. And his very first action there is so significant. He buys land and he builds an altar. He names it Elohi is God, the God of Israel.
It's a public declaration.
Exactly. And that's the application for us. After you receive that kind of grace, that kind of transformation, your first public act should be to establish your commitment to the God who transformed you. The man now named Israel is publicly recognizing his God.
And just when you think we've reached a peaceful resolution, the narrative takes this incredibly dark and shocking turn.
It's a complete whiplash. We go from this external peace and divine commitment to an internal crisis of betrayal and sin within his own household.
It really raises that question. What happens when the next generation inherits the peace but not the transformation?
That's it. The tragedy centers on Dinah, Jacob's daughter. She's defiled by Shechem, the prince of that area, and this act causes this profound fury among her brothers.
To be fair, Hamor and Shechem try to resolve it. They offer marriage, a high payment, full integration into their land. They're offering a very high price to try and settle it honorably.
They are, but Jacob's sons, especially Simeon and Levi, are just driven by rage. They respond with this deep, dark deceit. They're so outraged that they decide to use the most sacred sign of God's covenant for an unholy purpose.
Vengeance.
Pure vengeance. They demand that every male in the city be circumcised for them to intermarry. They use a holy sign as a wicked tactical tool to incapacitate the men.
And the men of the city agree, which is just tragic.
It is, because on the 3rd day, when they're in the most pain, Simeon and Levi attack the city. They massacre every single male. Then they let the other brothers come in and loot the entire place, wealth, women, children, everything.
It is such a shocking warning. The sin against Dinah was terrible, but her brother's response became a far, far greater sin, a calculated massacre.
They took justice completely into their own hands. And it's a painful truth. But using a sacred means for an unholy end it's deeply offensive. This whole story warns us that our uncontrolled anger, even if it starts from righteous indignation, can lead to something so much worse.
And Jacob sees the danger immediately. He condemns them, not just morally, but practically. He says, "You've made me obnoxious to everyone here. You've put our whole family, our small family, in danger of being wiped out."
And now the reply is just chilling. It's totally self-justifying. Should he have treated our sister like a prostitute? They chose their own impulsive, vengeful retribution over trusting in God's justice and protection.
So Jacob, the man who wrestled with God to find peace, now sees that peace threatened by the violent, untransformed hearts of his own children.
It's a study in radical contrast, isn't it? We saw one man's fear transform through this profound spiritual struggle, leading to this unexpected, overwhelming grace.
And then immediately after, we see the next generation choose deceit and vengeance, shattering that fragile peace.
And that's the life of faith right there. It's a continuous process. You have to keep letting go of the old nature, the fear, the cunning, the manipulation, and keep walking in that new identity God gives you, that persistent reliance of Israel. And that's especially true when we face real anger and injustice.
So the ultimate test for the person who has seen God isn't just how they handle external threats, but how they manage that internal outrage. Jacob walked away with a limp, a sign of humility. His sons acted with unrestrained violence.
Which leaves us with a challenging thought for you, for me. What small area of personal vengeance or maybe deceit is threatening the safety and peace of your own spiritual household right now? That's what we have to identify. That's what we have to bring to the wrestling.
That was it for day 11. Meet you on day 12 tomorrow.